Hello to the newbies, welcome back to the veterans. It is time for Ted to talk boxing. Which currently active fighters have the best records? Which ones have the deepest resumes? I'm going to give you my top 5. The reason I'm going to give you 5 rather than 10 is for reasons similar to pound for pound lists. Gervonta Tank Davis might just make a lot of people's top 10 pound for pound. But if we compare his overall abilities to, say, Terence Crawford, there's a bit of a difference there. Errol Spence Jr. has a very good record, solid wins. But I think we'll find that his record pales in comparison to the ones I'm about to list. WBO super flyweight champion Kazuto Ioka first became a world champion now 10 years ago. He is Japan's first and only 4-weight world champion, and along with Canelo Alvarez, this is a guy who blends pressure and defense in a fashion that's just great to watch. Gets in your face, chips away, makes you miss. Real, palpable pound for pound talent. Just 2 losses on his record. One against the awkward Thai Amnat Rurong, which he probably deserved to lose, though in his defence it was his first world title crack at flyweight. And his second one, also a split decision loss, against Filipino Donny Nietes, which I felt he was unfortunate not to get. So really, in my book, you've got one close loss at a new weight division, and other than that, from minimum weight up to superfly so far, he has been fantastic. And recently, Kazuto has shown probably the best form of his career, stopping the big Aston Polite with an amazing barrage, and then may just have had his career best performance against fellow, formerly undefeated Japanese fighter, Kosai Tanaka. When it comes to decisions, you could definitely say this guy has fared a lot better. The judges tend to smile on him. You could probably put another 3 losses on Canelo Alvarez's record, and it wouldn't be a scandal. Both Golovkin fights and the Lara fight. The difference is, I feel, really, only Floyd Mayweather has really got the better of him. That first Golovkin fight, a lot of people I know weren't happy with the decision. But something that always struck me more was how Golovkin never really got control of him, of how so much of what makes Golovkin good as a fighter was negated by the skill of Alvarez. He was like the disobedient pupil who you can just not get under control. He showed a lot himself in that suspect draw, and then more again in the rematch. Then we look at the depth of his record. This guy's been fighting since I think was 15, literally half his life now. All the different styles, all the different sizes of fighters. Guys he's beaten now like Callum Smith, Danny Jacobs, so much naturally bigger than Canelo Alvarez, who is just refined his style, full of confidence, and similar to Ioka right now, he is doing very well indeed. 30 years of age, he's going to definitely be adding to this deep resume. 10 years ago, this guy was one of the top pound for pound fighters on the planet, along with fellow pound for pound fighters Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Andre Ward, and Sergio Martinez. Yes, the Filipino Flash a decade ago was keeping with some very good company. An amazing left hook on the counter. One of the most devastating shots in recent times. We'll never forget the knockouts of Vic Darchinyan, of Fernando Montiel, champ at flyweight, superfly, bantam, super bantam, and then went on to give a lot of featherweights a lot of trouble. Yes, he was derailed by the very awkward Guillermo Rigondeaux after an amazing run and then continued to fight on. Gave the huge featherweight Nicholas Walters a lot of trouble, really shook him with that hook. Carried on going on. Carl Frampton gave him a good fight. Really looked like he was heading for disaster here, pushing 40. Then he chooses to enter the Super Series tournament at bantamweight. Bantamweight. He hadn't fought it there for years. This seemed like suicide. Not only does he become champ again, he makes it to the final. And he gives current pound-for-pound star Naoya Inoue the toughest fight of his career. What Donaire has done just really recalls the old school. Nicaragua's only 4-weight world champion is now a champion in 3 different decades. When HBO picked up Roman Gonzalez and said, "This is your #1 pound-for-pound fighter," he was already a 3-weight world champion. No different to Floyd Mayweather when he was chosen as the top dog in the mid-noughties. Difference is, we'd been watching Floyd Mayweather since day one. Roman Gonzalez at that point had constructed this absurd record of dominance, a very high KO percentage, constantly chipping away on opponents until they crumbled. A subtle defense, fantastic at cutting off the ring. Chocolatito was a phenom at his best. Beat a lot of fighters like Akira Yagashi and Juan Francisco Estrada, who would go on to become champion for a first or second time. Beat a lot of ambitious, fresh fighters. First guy to beat Carlos Cuadras in a very tough fight. Srisaket saw Rungvisai. Along he comes and blasts Chocolatito out. But then Chocolatito, impossibly after injuries, comes back and manages to dethrone Cal Yafai. In his defence, the first Rungvisai fight could have gone his way. It was a very close decision. And the thing really underpinning all of this is Roman Gonzalez is a small guy. 5'3", 115 pounds really doesn't suit him. And here he is, still near the very top. And as we'll see with our #1, getting knocked out does not knock the greatness out of you. You probably didn't have to think too hard about who this was going to be. Boxing's only 8-weight division champion. Boxing's only champion in 4 separate decades. Manny Pacquiao, I feel, we're all so familiar and impressed with him that even a casual fan would give him a nice little write-up. This guy's depth and resume, that's just one aspect. With Manny Pacquiao, it's more a case of how has he managed to do this? How did he not burn out earlier? Is he made of something different than your regular fighters? We all know the big victories. I think it's got to a point now where we don't shine enough light on some of the other good victories he's had, like the breakthrough win against Ledwaba, the very nice victory against the pummeling against David Diaz. There's loads of other great victories when we're not talking about the victories of a Barrera or Cotto. Just the sheer freneticity of Pacquiao's record. For somebody who's watched him throughout the noughties and the way he's held form into his 40s, it's really unbelievable.